Hi, and welcome back to my final part of my review of my top 10 Transformers for 1984. For the third choice, I have chosen Starscream. This felt like almost like a compulsory choice because so many people like him, and I actually kind of hated him growing up. He was actually kind of one of my least favorite characters. This is the one from the show I'm talking about, by the way. Um, there's a number of reasons I disliked him, one of them being that he wanted to overthrow Megatron, and naturally, I mean, to me, there's nothing worse than a traitor. Like, even if it's for the wrong team, to me, even if you're on the wrong team, to me, there's nothing worse than a traitor. The other thing I disliked about him too was that he pushed those around that were weaker than him or smaller than him in a weaker position than him. He seemed almost kind of like a bully to me. One example is in one episode, he's being very pushy with that Dr. Arkeville guy, and yeah, granted that guy is evil too, but I really just felt like he was too much of a bully for my liking. In another episode, I believe it's called Changing Gears, he's really pushing around Gears in that episode too, and he just always, there's one with Bumblebee too, and he just seemed like overall a bully to me, which almost made me like Megatron a little more for putting him in line. But the thing that I guess he's grown on me over the years is one of them being he's just really neat looking. He's a really cool looking character, like not just in jet mode but in robot mode. He's really eye catching, and even my son is really like a big Starscream fan, and yeah, he's very eye catching to look at. He just has a lot of neat features about him. One of them being the cockpit on the front of his chest. I thought that was really neat because it almost seemed like kind of a little jail for really tiny prisoners. Like in one episode, he has Dr. Arkeville in there, and in one of the issues, he has Spike's dad in there, and he actually transforms and takes Spike's dad out after he's already in robot mode. So that was a neat aspect about his character, I thought too. And I know that Chris Latta did the voice of him, and he's passed on now, but he was a stand-up comedian, and I thought that was really cool because there was always something to me that was almost comical about Starscream's voice whenever I heard him talk. There was a number of friends that agreed with me about that too. Just something really comical about him. And so yeah, that really blew me away that it was a stand-up comedian that did his voice. And the thing that really got me liking him over the years was a letter a girl had mailed into Marvel Comics stating why Starscream was her favorite character, and when I saw that, I was just like, whoa, well, how could Starscream be this girl's favorite character? But she actually came up with a really awesome reason why. Because if he was to overthrow Megatron to ever be successful at that, in a way he's unintentionally a good helper for the Autobots, a good aid to them, because if he ever overthrew Megatron, he'd deliver the Autobots an easy victory because he clearly could not take on Optimus. So he would actually hand the Autobots an easy victory if he ever defeated Megatron. So or overthrew him somehow, you know. So that was something that really grew on me over the years, of how he's a really neat character for that. So that's why I picked him for number 3. For number 2, I chose Megatron, and I know a lot of people might feel that this is tacky or cliche, but no, I just had to go with him, and I actually have a lot of good reasons why I did. I had to pick the one from the show and the one from the comic, and I know I said I would pick one or the other, but I really had to pick both because there's things I like and dislike about both versions, so that's why I had to pick a little bit from each. And so yeah, I don't know, what can I say that hasn't been said about Megatron in countless reviews already, but I don't know. I guess for starters, one of the reasons being naturally the voice actor, Frank Welker, from the show. I just felt he was so awesome and badass as Megatron. That laugh, I always loved his laugh. It was so funny and maniacal. It was so great. And to me, he will always be Megatron. Like, I do like Hugo Weaving as the new Megatron, but to me, Megatron will always be Frank Welker. And one of the reasons I also chose the comic book version partly was because I just found his overall intelligence and schemes to be more elaborate than in the show. I just found him to be more brilliant than the version from the show. I don't blame Frank Welker for this, because this is clearly the writer's fault for not developing his character more in the show. He just seemed kind of half-track minded in the show. He was always talking about stealing energy, like it was always about energy, energy this, energy that, which I felt was kind of bland compared to the comic, where he had a lot more intellectual kind of plans and schemes. That's why I had to choose both. Because I love Frank Welker's voice as Megatron, but that's why I had to pick both a little bit. Plus, he's a guy you love to hate. He's very much the classic kind of villain. Like, you could compare him to all sorts of villains, real and fictitious ones, like from Dracula to Adolf Hitler. He even reminded me a lot like the James Bond kind of villains, always talking about his next scheme, what he was planning and whatnot. So, that's another good reason. Another thing I always loved was his appearance. Being an artist myself, I know he has a very simplistic appearance. I remember even one of the comic artists going off about that, but he still manages to have a really striking appearance. His fusion cannon to me was always really badass, and plus he can turn into a gun, which any kid's gonna love that. The last thing I'll mention is the new concept Dreamwave Comics threw in recently. The fact that Megatron kind of sees himself as a hero to his own race, the way that many dictators actually start out, that he's simply looking out for the good of his own people, and I think they're trying to say that he sees the world as kind of dog eats dog world kind of deal, and that he believes in his own mind that he's doing the right thing by his race, even though you can still see he's clearly driven by power. He's really still obsessed with that. Another classic villain trait, so that's why I chose him for number 2. And for number 1, I have chosen Optimus. Yeah, big surprise for anyone who knows me. But actually, this is something nobody would know. Actually, when I was a kid, Blaster from the comic was my favorite for a long time. But as the years passed, I understood why I had to choose Optimus. I mean, for one thing, the inspiration he just gave me alone as a child was phenomenal. You know, to be the best person you can be, you know, and caring about others. He even inspired me in my creative life, because the main hero in my own comic book is very much like him in his personality. I wanted to give him a lot of the attributes Prime had. And after he died in the movie, I was both devastated and angry. I remember I cried pretty bad, but it also made me realize a short time later why he had to be my favorite. He was like the good-hearted father figure to the other Autobots, especially Bumblebee. He always cared more about others than he did for himself. He always was watching out for everyone else more than himself, and he always worked hard to show the other Autobots the right path in life with his moral fiber, you know, to show them how to be good. And later on, there was a number of times he even seemed Christ-like, actually, in the series, especially after the Matrix appeared, and near the end of the comic series, they really showed that. I've even seen people make jokes about it, especially with Optimus Primal and Beast Machines, like being Christ-like. And speaking of which, I did like the voice actor in Beast Wars, but to me, just as with Megatron, the true Optimus will always be Peter Cullen. He has always done a spectacular job as Optimus, conveying real deep emotion, you know, and one of the greatest voice actors of cartoons in the 80s, in my opinion. He's the best Optimus and will always be the best Optimus, you know. Another thing is, I always loved the fact that he was built like a war machine, but chose to use his abilities for good, being kind and protective and gentle to all the life around him. And I also think he had an awesome appearance. When I was a kid, I remember thinking of how his face reminded me of a ninja, because of the mouthpiece. And plus he turned into a semi-truck, which is the most awesome truck to me. And later I actually found myself appreciating the fact that they killed him off in the movie, as much as that might tick off some fans. I just found that it caused us to like him more for making that ultimate sacrifice, just like Tom Hanks does the same thing in Saving Private Ryan. I know that their reasons for killing him off were different from what I'm talking about, but it still made sense in the sense that he would sacrifice himself to save everybody else. But then they had to go and ruin this by bringing him back near the end of the series, which was going downhill anyways. It was going in the toilet. And I just found it ruined the impact of him dying for his cause and making that ultimate sacrifice, and caused it to be less moving about when he died. You know, it was a completely different robot in Beast Wars anyways, so it wouldn't have affected the continuity at all. So yeah, I've got so many reasons I could go into why Prime is my favorite, but I'm gonna cut it off there, and thank you for watching my top 10 Transformers for 1984, and I'll keep anyone who's interested posted on when I do the top 10 for the 1985 Transformers. Hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for watching.